Hello and welcome to Train Signal. I'm Veronica Henry and you're watching the Introduction to Linux Plus training for exam LX0 102. Once again, this half of the course will focus on the objectives for the LX0 102 exam. Now if you pass this exam, in addition to LX0 101, you will have earned your certification. With that in mind, in this course, we'll begin with a look at the Linux shell. This material covers the shell environment, the most common shell, which is bash, along with environment variables and details about the shell search path. Next, we'll cover writing and editing scripts, which includes the basic commands involved, along with functions and loops. Scripts can range from the really simple, things like clearing away unnecessary files, to the incredibly complex. Then we'll talk about X11 installation and configuration. The X Window system is Linux's GUI. We'll focus on how to configure video hardware and things like font management. From there, we'll move on to Display Manager and accessibility options. We'll review the top 3 display managers, XDM, KDM, and GDM, and then we'll cover accessibility options that can be used to help your users with physical disabilities. Next, we have the job scheduling lesson, which will cover the tools used to schedule administration tasks. Then we move on to international localization options and system time. These topics include how to configure location settings like local date and time, in addition to time zone and country locale. Our next lesson is managing system and kernel logs, which covers the configuration files and management of your system logs. Then there's email and printing, which will focus on the basics of sending and receiving email, and the default programs, which will focus on the basics of sending and receiving email and the default programs. Then we'll move into printer and print queue management. Up next, we have Internet protocols. This lesson includes topics like IP version 4 and how it differs from the newer IP version 6. We'll also cover TCP and UDP ports. Some of this information may be familiar to Windows administrators. The next lesson is network configuration and troubleshooting, and I'll explain the files and utilities that you use to configure and troubleshoot network hosts and systems. Next, we move on to security administration, which focuses on server and host security and password administration, along with system limits. Our last lesson is encryption options, where we'll review secure remote connection options in addition to file and email encryption options. So with that, let's get ready to dive into the final half of our CompTIA Linux Plus certification course.